In this video, I'm going to cover the interesting book by AMS. Now, AMS is known as Alpha Male Strategies. I'm sure many of you know him. He has over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. And if you see here, he has over 135 million views, right? So he's been very successful at this. Go through in a bit of a background to him in a moment, but he wrote a book, right, called Alpha Money Strategies. He's written some other books around dating. I'm sure some of you are aware of that. And in this quite interesting book, what he does, talks about how to be your own boss. And I'm going to go through some of the key lessons here, right? How you could quit your job, be your own boss. And as you can see through these, like I say, his YouTube channel, some of his most popular videos have over 1 million views time and time again. So sure, the people of you who know him quite well. He's quite successful and he has many good points to make, right? Now, if you're interested in these type of situations, and we're going to go through a bit of his background here, and I'm going to go through the whole book summary. This is really going to help you right now. But if you're interested in being your own boss, right? If you're interested in not being a man who's going to waste decades trapped in corporate slavery, right? Meanwhile, winners are building freedom and wealth on their own terms, right? If you want to do that, this is what I offer throughout my career coaching program, right? I'll do a personalized exit plan if you want to exit the corporate world, backed by my over 10 years experience at Goldman's, Morgan Stanley, and HSBC, because I've seen how careers can rise and fall, particularly in an unstable economy like this. I've up from entry-level employees, from intern all the way up to director level. So I know the typical strategies you'd have to use in the corporate world, but also, background in finance, building my own businesses on the side too. I know what it takes to build that exit plan for your freedom so you can be your own boss, right? So don't wait until, the economy is going to get even worse, right? And my coaching prices would rise then too. If you're interested, schedule a call now. There's a link in the description and we can get started. Let's go back to this book. So he wrote a book, Alpha Money Strategies. Now you might be thinking, what's the book about? It's a bit about finance, but mainly it's about being your own boss, right? So we're going to go through this with a book review and learn some of the top lessons from the book. So let's go through some of his key by his book structure. But before I do, so you might not know this, but hip hop trivia for some of you. The rap group UGK, right? So in UGK, people know the two members, Bun B and Pimp C, right? But there was another guy, Alpha A, who was actually AMS, right? He was actually the third member of UGK, right? So if you go back and listen to some of their classic songs, Pocket for Stones, Chopping Blades, Diamonds and Wood, he's actually doing the ad-libs on a lot of those songs, and he was known as the bald-headed boss man back in the day. So if you're into hip-hop, go back and check that. It's quite interesting. So now we're going to go back to the book, right? What is that book I showed you about, right? It's just $10 or so on Amazon. Very easy to buy. It's on Amazon Kindle too, so you can read it on your phone. It's quite good if you're interested in self-employment, right? It has 97 short chapters of 2 to 5 pages, 97 little lessons that you can learn from. And the way I recommend you read it is maybe you're traveling to work, traveling back home from work. You can have it on your phone or a Kindle, your iPad, whatever it be. And it's very good because you can just read a couple lessons, think about it carefully, how it applies to your life, and then take it from there. Because a lot of these are real life stories. They're short stories with some real life advice about what he's been through. And it's important things to think about, because many people just jump into being self-employed without being fully skilled, right? Just to be clear, it's not an investing book, even though he covers investments at a high level, ETFs, real estate, other type of investments you might want to do. But it's not really all about how to invest in the stock market. It's really about being self-employed. Now, and it's all about the reality that comes with being your own boss, because many men will talk, I want to be my own boss. I don't want to go to work and deal with a difficult manager and people are going to boss me around and tell me what to do. And the reality is, when you're pursuing self-employment, like I'm doing as a self-employed career coach, or AMS did, it comes with a lot of challenges and ups and downs in your income, and it's very volatile, right? And you deal with situations where you're like, should you go back and get a real job or a normal job? Because being your own boss, even though it sounds good, comes with a lot of stress and instability in terms of your income, right? So it comes with a lot of those challenges, right? And the thing is, what you want to do in life, if you want to be your own boss, you want long-term self-employment, or in America, you want to be a 1099 worker, which is like a contractor or a freelancer, rather than a W-2, which is like, employee. And what ends up happening is you have to figure out what is the solution for you. Now, he went through many ups and downs. He started as a security guard, working as a bouncer for low pay. Then he became a personal trainer for, higher pay. And then he really hit the higher income levels by his social media brand, where he gives life advice, advice. You can consider him like a fitness coach and a life coach for men. Now we're going to go through each section of the book, right? He has these 97 chapters. They're not exactly organized this way, but I've picked out the 5 key lessons if you want to be self-employed, the 5 key lessons if you have to develop people skills, of course, when you want to be successful, investing skills, and then we're going to go through quotes in another video, right? So we've got self-employment, people skills, and investing skills. Now, when you want to be self-employed, right, firstly, you need to really think about a couple key things. So the first thing when it comes to self-employment, if you want to be your own boss, right, is to find your purpose. At the end of the day, money is needed, of course, but money doesn't make you happy. The happiness comes from, and the fulfillment, it comes from making money doing what you genuinely love, right? And you're able to make more, because if you're really interested in what you're doing, maybe it's personal fitness, personal finance, whatever it would be, is you're not limiting yourself like the typical employee who only has a certain amount of limited enthusiasm for the particular job, right? In the majority of the book, through the different lessons, he's covering his life lessons. He moved from living in the southern states of America, I think it was Georgia, and he moved up to New York for a relationship. And then when the relationship wasn't working out and he wasn't that invested in it, he was thinking about, best move for his career, whether it's staying in as a security guard or working as a personal trainer, an online fitness coach. And like I say, a common theme there is not having stability, but constantly chasing what was his purpose as a man, rather than just chasing different women or even chasing social status or a salary. It was all really coming back to his personal purpose, right? Then when it came to dealing with that and pursuing self-employment, there were times where it didn't work out and he was pursuing his purpose, but financially it wasn't working out, and he had to break up with his girlfriend, live with his family members for a while, and then, time save and invest, and now he's a multimillionaire, right? So it's all about embracing the instability you're dealing with. This is the reality we all have to deal with. You have an unstable society, economy, and even job, right? So rather than chase stability, like you're some kind of trad wife who thinks there's going to be a stable, simple life, churning butter in the wheat field somewhere, right? Living off grid, you kind of instability, like, oh, well, I keep a low cost of living, you're ready to move and work from anywhere in any specific circumstance, and it doesn't really exist, this type of dream life of stability. Even the people who want to focus on having a stable dead-end 9-to-5 job, even that instability is coming to visit them too. Even if they keep their head down and do all the right things, you have to to be your own boss in some sense, even if it's simply being a freelancer or a consultant in your own industry and upskilling, so you're always in demand in your industry. Next thing is around grind and monetization, right? People who don't sacrifice to build their own dream, their own company, are going to sacrifice their time and energy to build up someone else's company, right? So the whole point is how much grind and willing to put in to build your own self-employment business, for example, because many people, they work for these big corporations. I worked at Goldman and Morgan Stanley. I've seen in my comments, you might have worked at Google or Amazon, and those early years, our work weeks that Bezos would put in, or Bill Gates, or whoever it'd be, we forget that, it's built on their backs of their hard work, right? For any of these corporations, right? Any of these big names you see here, it's typically 1 to 5 men who built that big company. And then you can have bloated hiring with tons of girl bosses and lazy guys who are at the office, right? But if you want to build your own thing, right, from scratch, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot, right? Or you can not sacrifice and take the easy route and maybe be an employee and maybe spend 40 years working and then get retirement. But if you want to do your own thing, you're going to have to sacrifice things. Like for me personally, I sacrifice some social time with, have a lot of a social life. That's just me being honest with you, right? And I think from listening to him, he makes sacrifices too by cutting out maybe negative family members and things like that. People who let you down, or certain former co-workers you might have been on good terms with. Sometimes you have to burn bridges, to empire, right? Or set some clear boundaries. So what are you willing to sacrifice? And if I listen to most people these days, they're complaining, they want to have a side hustle, they want to make more money, but they want to watch Netflix every night, right? They want to, scroll through their phone, right? So what are you willing to sacrifice? And the key thing there, and this is difficult for all of us because we all have to sometimes sacrifice things and it doesn't have a payoff, right? You sacrifice your free time to learn a professional qualification and then you can't get a job in that field, or you can't move forward in your career. So there can be difficult realities to that, right? But it's all about, you forward and try to see through the psyops, the time-wasting news, even in some cases time-wasting professional qualifications, so you can do something that's actually going to real career or develop your self-employment in a way that benefits you. The other thing is the positive mindset. He talks about the law of attraction being real. What you focus on is what you get in life. And I've realized this too in my life. And I find it, like I said, I'm like everyone out there, right? And I'm sure he's did this too throughout his life, even now, where you're trying to keep a positive mindset, but you're surrounded by negativity. It could be the constant negative news. Even if you try not to keep up with it, you have to see some of it. You have negative family members who say you pursuing self-employment is a waste of time and it's too risky. But you really need to, and then also everyone has some of their own self-doubts, right? So what is the best way of managing this? Now, you've probably heard of the concept of a vision board. A vision board is where you have a board up maybe in your bedroom and it has a few key images of what you want to achieve. It could be moving abroad. It could be buying an expensive car, a new house, and the exact type of house you want, and you focus on visualizing that and you do your work. So it keeps you motivated and it keeps you targeted on what you want, because many people have these big dreams, and I wouldn't even say big dreams like, oh, have to drive a Bugatti and live in Romania with 5 girlfriends and LARP as Andrew Tate. I think it could be simple things where maybe you do want your own piece of land to grow your own food and have your own home gym. You do want to have many kids with, 3 different wives, things like that. But at the end of the day, you want to be focused on that. You don't want to let the system to warp your idea of success, which happens to many people because they're so busy working in the corporate world and all they can think of is, oh, I just need to get that promotion to the next level. I just need to become vice president or executive director and then my life will be sorted. And they haven't actually moved forward. They might be making some more money because they get promoted, but they haven't worked closer to their own dreams and they end up sacrificing more of their free time. So it's all about thinking about what you want and making sure you're taking the steps in that direction and keeping motivated by that. I mean, I always try to keep positive little messages around, space on the wall, things like that. There different images I can put up. I'm working on that actually in the next week or so to change. I used to have a few positive images of some of the goals I'm aiming for, and those goals have changed now because times change, society we're living changes and what you want in life changes. But as long as you keep pushing in that direction, that's what keeps you motivated. Because I realized, and this is an interesting thing for you to try, think about the reoccurring images you might have in your head. And a lot of the times your mental space, even if you don't want it to be, is caught up with what's going on in the world around you. It could be it's something you've seen, some random things, maybe an advert, and then subconsciously you see the advert enough times, it convinces you to buy something or try it. But if you try your best to replace those images in your head with everything you want and everything you're aiming for, is much more productive, right? And it's much more useful for you because that's what you want. The system wants to drain you of your positive energy and your positive mindset by getting you to focus on negativity. And many people have a crabs in the bucket mentality, tall poppy syndrome. You have family members negative who failed in life or been average. They don't want you to succeed because it's going to make them insecure. So that's why it's all about keeping a positive mindset. And when you're moving in a positive direction, if people are jealous and things like that, cut them out of your life, limit your interaction with them. And there's polite ways of doing it, or impolite ways of blocking their number from your phone. There's ways where you just don't share as much detail about what you're doing in your life if you know they're going to copy you, use you, and then blame you if all of a sudden you start cutting them off. So really think carefully about what interaction you're having with negative people, right? And who's impacting your mindset. Because at the end of the day, what really matters is what's in your best interest. And that's not from a perspective of being selfish, but pursuing your goals, fulfilling, things like that. Realizing how far you can take your goals. And I think about that a lot, right? So really think about what is your end goal, because that's the only thing that keeps me going sometimes. So the next point is around sales and branding, right? Now, what you need to think about sales and branding is, attention, how to get validation, how to get opportunities, right? How to get attention for what you do. Now, for example, that could be on LinkedIn, and I work on that with my clients to improve their LinkedIn profile and optimize that for recruiters and hiring managers. Another thing is looking at alternatives, wherever you'd be doing sales and branding. In him, it was YouTube. You've seen has over 500k subscribers, and I'm sure he's on Instagram and other platforms too. So how are you going to present yourself in a way that, of course, is going to attract clients? And the other thing is consistent quality. Do you have a good product? Do you have good marketing? And there's a snowball effect there that he talks about, which is, of course, the type of marketing is word of mouth, which means if you create a course, coaching program, fitness coaching in his case, or career coaching in my case, people recommending you to others is going to attract loads of business, and they're really going to trust you. They're going to be warm leads. If you're familiar with the sales term warm leads, which means is really eager to work with you because they've seen you time and time again. They've got many recommendations and they want to basically, have your services. So if you want to be self-employed, you can run through this. You can pause the video if you need to. Focus on finding your purpose, how much effort and sacrifice you're going to be willing to put in to achieve that. What is your positive mindset in achieving that? What sales and branding could you implement on that? And then how can you apply consistent quality? Here is essentially, when you're dealing with people, it takes a lot of discipline, right? Because it's very easy to burn bridges sometimes, right? When you're dealing with a difficult, toxic manager, you might want to respond aggressively, and they're deliberately trying to provoke you so they can fire you by trying to undermine you and take loads of cheap shots with you. So it can be very difficult when you're dealing with many different people, right? So, and a lot of the times, like I say, sometimes it's the closest people, a family member or a friend or a co-worker or a manager who's really trying to put you on edge. Sometimes you're in a relationship with someone who's not trustworthy, right? Someone who is not helpful, right? And you've got to think about who the people closest to you are. I'm not saying they've got to be working for you or always say positive things about you, but are they helpful? Are they pushing for your personal growth? Are they challenging you in a positive way? Do you want to move with them and progress with them, or are they someone you need to interact with less? And that's the harsh reality for a lot of people, is that if you want success in this society, sometimes, you pursue solitude. You have to pursue being isolated to a certain extent, right? The most obvious example would be fitness, where you would maybe spend a lot of time, in by yourself. You're not always going to have a gym buddy with you, right? Another would be relocating. Many people are relocating. I'm sure you've heard from UK to Dubai because Dubai has lower income tax, right? So there's other opportunities there where he relocated from his safe, smaller in the southern states of America, and he moved to New York. Right? And many people will be like, no, I'll just where I live, and they stay in their small town and they never go anywhere, right? So the first thing here is around discipline. Now, when it comes to mental toughness, right, you want to use tough times as a learning experience, like we see right now with this tough economy. No one has endless upward trajectory. You're not just straight up throughout life. You're going to have ups and downs, right? And throughout those ups and downs, you've got to focus on what you can do, right, to get stronger, to richer. That's why I see, particularly if you're a man, you want to focus on three things: getting stronger, richer, and free, right? That's my perspective. That's not in the book, right? I think about that a lot. Like, how can you always be doing things to become more resilient? Now, and there's a famous phrase out there, appear strong when you're weak, and when you're weak, appear strong, right? And that's very important. So a good example of this is many people are dealing with layoffs in recent months and years. And the question is, what are you doing in that layoff? Now, many people are going to be like, oh, well, I'm just job searching. And of course, there's nothing wrong with searching for a job when you're dealing with a layoff, of course. But what else are you doing with that time? Because you can't job search 24/7, right? Now, I covered my layoff in previous videos, other people dealing with layoffs, and there are some good habits you can pursue there. And if you like a job, it's going to take at least 3 to 6 months to find the next job in this job market. I'm not sure. Hopefully I'll get the job sooner. But what can I do with my time, right? And one of those things is you split your day between, health, skill development, for example, whatever would work for you. I've worked with different strategies for my clients. So a good thing would be, okay, well, in the morning, every morning for the next 3 months, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm not going to have the excuse of, oh, I've got work hours, I can't make it to the gym. Well, no, you don't. You can go to the gym every morning. Then you spend 9 to 5 doing your job search, reaching out to recruiters, improving your LinkedIn, preparing for job interviews. And then in the evening, you do maybe 2 hours of skill development, maybe a skill you actually want to learn, or a skill that's going to help you in your career. So it could be learning a foreign language, it could be learning a new coding skill. And the whole point is you're becoming stronger over time. Even if you've had this major setback, you've been working at a company for 5 years, they give you a layoff. They don't give you a decent layoff package. They only give you 2 months. You're like, I've worked there for 5 years. I thought I'd get 5 months pay. They're screwing on the way out. They're making bad rumors about me that I'm not good. It's going to harm me when I'm looking for my next job. And this is the reality. You have to have so much discipline in these scenarios because people are going to play so many underhanded tactics. You're going to have rug pulled, right? I'm sure you're familiar with the term rug pulled, where you make an investment and then it crashes. You might be making investments in yourself and then something goes wrong. I've seen this not only in the corporate field, but also when people are maybe working in a competitive, for example, and people blow out their ACL, have a knee injury, a shoulder injury. How are they recovering from that? What's their mindset, right? I've seen this in WWE, like pro wrestling. You see it in basketball, all other type of sports, right? What is your mindset and discipline when you're down, right? Because it's easy when you're up and you're making a ton of money, you're just investing it, or you're buying a few things you like, you're having fun with your friends, but who's there when you're having difficult times? And times like this is when you need that discipline. So that if you are going through a layoff now, for example, right, or you are self-employed and you're having a downturn in your income, of course you want to lift that up, but instantly switch that to be like, okay, cool, with a layoff, how can I focus on upskilling and improving every aspect of my life, right? And like I say, a large part of that could be fitness related. It could be building a deeper connection with your partner if you're in a relationship, with family members, things like that. Interesting avenue for that would be, okay, well, maybe you're going to be unemployed for the next 3 months, then every evening you dedicate to spending a closer time or more time with family members who might be stressed out of their job, right? Or you spend the evening making a meal for them or whatever that would be. And that's really how you make the most of those difficult scenarios. Now, the next thing is adaptability, right? So you want to develop thick skin, right? Like I say, some people will be criticizing you for no reason. So many people take little cheap shots at you at work, in your personal life for no reason. It's like, why you say something negative, right? You do something positive and they just want to make little negative comments. That's when you realize you really got to cut people off. And I've done that many times. You want to ignore their scrutiny. You want to focus on your peaceful and your positive kind of focus in life. Don't bring negativity or negative people into your life, and just dissociate from negative co-workers. Next thing would be social circles, right? If you want to succeed in life, and this is a very important, maybe the most important lessons from my channel, is you want to stop being desperate to fit in, right? Most people, and you can look around, go look at most people, they are losers. Most people are losers. They're NPCs, the normies. There's a reason why there's a term for NPCs or normies, right? Not everybody is going to like you. If you're coming from your goals rather than looking for people to perceive you as being popular, then you're going to live a more fulfilling life. Because what is being popular, if we take a moment, what is being normal, what is fitting in, is probably spending hours and hours watching football games, right? Or the sports games. There's nothing wrong with a bit of that, but you'd rather focus on doing it yourself rather than being a spectator. Even if you're not the best football player or MMA, martial art, it's better to focus on you doing it. The other thing would be just wasting time watching TV shows, drinking a lot of alcohol, eating unhealthy food. That's the average normie life, right? Just being a dumb consumer and doing things that are going to negatively impact you over time, right? So at the end of the day, you want to focus on not fitting in, because fitting in is like you're fitting in with a functioning, healthy society where you have freedom of speech and healthy relationships. Like, not fitting in is basically the best option. Next thing is around communication. You want to control your emotions, focus on your purpose and your long-term goals. And if you control your emotions, focus on your purpose and long-term goals, you avoid a lot of annoying people, right? You don't let them trick you out your position, right? Your goals come first. You don't waste money. You're focused on purpose, whether like I say, that's investing, financial freedom. You're letting people trick you out your position. And what I mean by that is you could be at work and a co-worker is deliberately taking cheap you, and it's the type of comments where you couldn't really go to or flag to your manager or whatever, because it's the type of little comments that are deliberately meant to undermine you. There's a phrase out there, death by 1,000 cuts, which means they keep making little digs at you until you react aggressively or violently or whatever that would be, and then they can get you cancelled, get you fired, say you said or did something inappropriate, right? So you have to be calm and focus on the long-term goals. And if you're so in tune with that long-term goal, these small little things, they don't impact you. Next thing is perspective. You want to overcome hard times and adversity through commitment and determination, right? Because it's very easy in those moments, particularly when you do have a difficult few months when you're self-employed, where you're just gonna give up, right? You got to think about, what long-term goal, what is my committed to, whether it's providing for your family or reaching an ultimate outcome of your lifestyle that you want it to have. If you lose perspective of that, then you're really going to struggle, right? You're going to have moments where you have complete mental breakdowns. And I've seen that, right? I've actually seen that because people are giving up a lot in this society. So next up, we're going to look at investing skills, right? Now, there's minor content on this in the book. Like I say, it's not an investing book. It's a book full of about 97 short 2 to 5 page life lessons on being self-employed and real stories about how he dealt with some of those challenges. Now, it covers the basics, like, thinking about short-term investments versus long-term investments, and how real estate, for example, is not passive, and it tends to demand a lot of maintenance. And lots of people think, the best form of investing is just to buy a house, buy a property. But it's like, no, if you have a rental property versus investing in stocks, rental property involves maintenance. You're going to have a property manager. You're going to have lots of more complex tax requirements covering the, making no expenses you have. You might have a dodgy tenant. The person living there might have a bad attitude. They might damage your property. They might always be complaining and whinging like, oh, I need to replace this light bulb and the shower fitting, and I don't like this and I don't like that. So you've got to really think about that maintenance. And some people think, oh, I'm just going to buy some rental properties in my home country in the West, like America or Canada or the UK, and then I'll just go and live abroad for cheap in Thailand. But it's like, okay, well, you're going to have to hire a property manager to manage those properties if there are any building maintenance issues, and you're going to have to pay them, maybe pay a letting agent. Have you thought about all of that? Do you really think your life is just going to be simple? You're just going to be in Thailand making a few phone calls and then all the property issues will be fixed? You're going to have a lot more complex issues than that. Now, so you go through these different options there, like I say, so real estate, things like that. And the most important thing here, he's focused on investing skills, is also linked to people skills, right? It's like, are you invest for your financial freedom, or are you just going to buy things to impress other people, right? He mentions himself, similar to some of you, I'm sure, where he's not the most outgoing person. He tends to like his own space at home. And I'm sure, given his income level, he probably has a nice large property in the southern state of America, and lives life on his term and controls his own time and what he does, right? So he's not necessarily going like, okay, I'm an expensive car so I can take a photo for Instagram so people can like me and click like. He's not going to do that as much as maybe some other people. Now, the first thing to focus on when it comes to investing skills is financial literacy. Do your own research, don't follow trends, think about what you're going to invest in versus where the hype is, and then investment knowledge, right? Know when to start investing. Is it more important for you to focus on, savings for your emergency fund, or reinvesting some of your profit to grow your business as a self-employed person, do more marketing and sales for your business? Or are you going to simply focus on, debt like your mortgage, or are you going to do more risky investments, right? Next thing is around building wealth, right? Are you focused on, having freedom, so you're investing more so you have more time later on in life, or do you want to buy more items, right? And the good examples he brings here is where people who are, high doctors, lawyers, they have tons of money from their job, but they don't have a lot of free time, and they work these long hours, and they have, like I say, free time to spend with their family members. They might have a big house. They have the social status of the job title. They're a doctor. They're a senior surgeon. They're the top lawyer of their law firm. They're a partner, but they're working like 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, right? And the whole job is tied to that job. The moment they lose that job, or they realize they can't keep up with it, they have a health issue, whatever, their lifestyle will completely crash because they bought all these big items, the expensive cars, multiple watches, and tailored suits and stuff. And he said he didn't really want to do that. He didn't really, even though he could have become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, that's not what he wanted. He wanted more time to enjoy a slower pace of life. And many people don't think about that. They're just focused on, oh, what's the social status of being a doctor, for example. Now, that's something I'd encourage you to really think about. When I on my channel often, when you pick a career, you pick a lifestyle. So really think carefully about what career you're picking, right? You don't want to just go, oh, I want to be an investment banker because other people say it's the good thing to do. And then all of a sudden you hate the work and you hate the long hours and you don't like the people. The other thing is risk management. Like I said, you want to invest aggressively for your long-term freedom. What's your risk tolerance level? Are you to, invest in to make back the losses? Because if you make some risky investments, what proportion of your overall portfolio is that, right? I hope you'd be able to learn from that, right? So if we just go through this briefly again. So AMS, very successful YouTuber, like I say, 97 short chapters, 2 to 5 pages each. If you're focused on self-employment, it's a good book for you. If you want to learn about investing, then it's not the right book for you. Many people who watch my channel, you want self-employment at some time, right? Many people I know, I see in the comments, I've dealt with some of my clients who are focusing on some form of self-employment now or in the future. So it's interesting for that because it's a very real and honest take on it. Self-employment, find your purpose, invest lots of time to developing your purpose so it's a successful business, keeping a positive mindset because you're going to have many ups, and particularly at the start. Think about branding, the way you present yourself professionally to attract clients, and delivering consistent quality so you've got a revolving door of more and more clients coming in. And then people skills, particularly in this unstable society, you're going to have to be very disciplined. You're going to have to focus on being adaptable to very difficult personalities, people, your co-workers not doing well in life, who are going to really snap in certain modes and try and push you because they want to spread their negativity on others. Be careful who's in and out your social circle, what information about your personal life and your future goals you're sharing with people who might spread negative energy on that. maintaining perspective through those early ups and downs so you can survive and be successful over the longer term. And the next thing is around financial literacy. Like I say, you focus on investing for your longer term financial freedom, building wealth, managing the risk of some of these investments, and thinking about a lifestyle you actually want to live. If you don't want to waste decades in corporate slavery, if you want to build freedom for yourself, power, pay, and freedom, I'll help you build a personalized exit plan, right? Backed by my 10 years of experience in investment banking, in sales and trading, understanding the corporate game, climbing the corporate ladder at Goldman's, Morgan Stanley, and HSBC, right? And if you don't want your career to continuously be going through instability and your income instability, you want to have that long-term freedom, it's best to start now rather than waiting until 2026 when the economy is going to get worse, there's going to be less opportunities, my coaching prices are going to rise too. It's best to schedule a call right now. There's a link in the description to speak with me. Let me know in the comments what you think about AMS and his book, and I'll see you in the next video.